itself.
The ultimate limit of that is the arms necessary to prevent. Basically, you can own any arm that is necessary to necessary.
They're fucking killing Arnivore kids, so you're telling me it isn't real when they had a fucking vote in the goddamn fucking Senate?
You're being replaced, and there's nothing you can do about it. So shut up.
Welcome, everyone, and get ready to rumble with the Bird and the Bard. I'm your host and favorite bard, Korak the Bard, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Dr. Scorpion the Bird, where we bring you the best of the worst on Rumble, the self-described free speech platform that has become a haven for right-wing grifters, Christian nationalists, racist ne'er-do-wells, Dunning-Kruger specimens, anti-Semites, as well as an entire rogues gallery of unsavory characters. Today is our pilot episode, and like any good origin story, we're delving into the history of how Rumble came to be, and just how easy it is to turn purposefully ignorant hatred into cold, hard cash in the right-wing Rumble sphere. So before we get into the action, allow me to introduce my co-host. He's a doctor, but not that kind of doctor.
Not the medical kind.
Not even the other kind.
Oh boy.
Technically.
And if he approaches you in an alley wearing a lab coat, it's already too late. You've made some terrible life decisions to reach this point. He is Dr. Scorpion the Bird.
Thank you, Bard. Thank you. I am a real doctor, I'm not a real bird, and I am here for the nerd shit.
As am I. As we're about to discuss some very dark and disturbing things, why don't we start off with a little bit of...
Something good for me is my Christmas present, which is the Russian Plague guitar pedal made right here in Melbourne by Kink Pedals. So for the guitar nerds out there, it's a dual circuit overdrive fuzz pedal that combines a rat with a big muff circuit, and it's glorious. You heard it in the intro. For the non-guitar people out there, you've stopped listening already. It's loud and it's annoying and it's obnoxious and it's beautiful and I love it. How about you, Bard? What's your good thing?
I do love a good big muff, so I feel you there. What's good for me is I am escaping the ever-growing wave of fascism in the United States and relocating to Costa Rica. So next week I will be exploring the beautiful lush jungles and looking for a place to live there. And we will hear more about that during my adventures in future podcasts.
Nice. Very nice. So, I'm going to lead us off here. Since this is our first episode, and since the best place to start is the start, we're going to talk about Rumble itself. What it is, what it does, who started it, and importantly, who's funding it. So Rumble was started in 2013 by self-described tech entrepreneur Chris Pavlovich, a Canadian of Macedonian descent who wanted to create an alternative to YouTube. Google bought YouTube in 2006 and started prioritizing content from select influencers over independent creators. And Pavlovich wanted a platform where that didn't happen. So we started Rumble, presumably with his own money, because try as I might, I can't find any information on the funding of Rumble at its launch and in its early stages. So Rumble was a modestly popular hosting site that was populated with the type of cat videos the internet was invented for. Korak, would you care to guess which catastrophic global event occurred between 2013 and today that led to the massive surge in popularity of Rumble?
My first thought is the Cubs winning the World Series in 2016. I mean, correlation isn't causation, but that really was when things started to go downhill. So thanks for that, Cubbies. But if that wasn't the culprit, I'm probably going to have to go with rhymes with Schmovid.
Yes, indeed. It was COVID, because all those conspiracy theories aren't going to spread themselves, and those theorists found their home on Rumble. The first big name to start using Rumble was former US congressional representative and man locked in a legal battle with a cow on Twitter, Devin Nunes. Nunes claimed, as was the fashion at the time, that the quote-unquote liberals in charge of Facebook, Google, and Twitter were censoring conservative voices, and that conservatives were being squeezed out of a media landscape that was, by his estimation, approximately 90% controlled by liberals. Nunes would go on to repeat these claims on Fox News, Fox Business, Fox and Friends, Newsmax, OAN, and a variety of conservative podcasts that consistently rank in Apple's top 10 for downloads. It's important to note that there is absolutely no specificity to his claims. At no point did Nunes ever say what it was that was being censored by the aforementioned tech companies.
Ah, yes, the old right-wing canard of victimization without any evidence. Just a vague liberal conspiracy that keeps them from being free to spout absolute bullshit. And just to be clear, we're talking about Devin I traffic in classified documents Nunes, who isn't having his free speech violated. He just doesn't like being dunked on by a cow on the internet.
Yes, he's also suing the account that claims to be his alt mother, so good times. So Nunes led the charge to Rumble, and he was quickly joined by such luminaries as Fox News personality and MMA fetishist Sean Hannity, alleged sexual assault enabler Jim Jordan, lying documentarian Dinesh D'Souza, and angry sentient potato Dan Bongino. Then, in July of 2021, a man who has as many dead rodents in his hair as he has felony convictions, Donald Trump, joined the Rumble circle jerk. Now, Trump, a man found liable for sexual assault by a New York civil court, joined 3 months after Rumble received a huge injection of cash from about as awful a bag of right-wing shitheads you could gather in one place. Vivek Ramaswamy, a man whose immigration policies would see him deport himself, Peter Thiel, the other terrible South African billionaire, and J.D. Vance, real boy doll owned by Peter Thiel. Later that year, Rumble acquired Locals, a crowdfunding site co-founded by token atheist and self-described former leftist Dave Rubin. Locals would be used by Rumble as its subscription service, providing premium access to live chat and extra content. Then in December of 2021, Rumble signed a deal with TMTG, the Trump Media and Technologies Group, a deal that led directly to Rumble being granted exclusive rights to stream the Republican primary debates in 2023.
This is like the perfect storm of right-wing bullshit. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, no, there is no worst, there is only worse.
Exactly.
Rumble had a big 2024, signing an advertising and content deal with Barstool Sports, a move into cryptocurrency, and a deal with a man who definitely didn't send explicit messages and or pictures to an underage girl, Dr. Disrespect.
Oh, God, that fucking douchebag. You know, with a name like Dr. Disrespect, I expected better. I bet he doesn't even have a PhD.
I know, they should be able to sue him for that sort of shit. Anyway, the election win by Trump in November of 2024 was taken as a positive sign for Rumble's future by the stock market, and thanks to a 190% increase in Rumble's share price in 2024, Pavlovich himself became a billionaire in January of 2025. Now, we have mentioned a few names. Some of them may already be familiar to folks listening, some may not, and I promise we will get to them in future episodes. Bongino particularly, as one of the, I'm going to say, thought in its loosest terms possible, one of the thought leaders on Rumble, it is worth spending a good amount of time on. And Korak, you already have some intimate knowledge of Rumble's content. Is it true that you were, and I can't believe this is an actual phrase in the English language, an undercover proud boy?
Oh, indeed, and in future podcasts we'll be delving into my time swimming in the swamp of the right-wing fever dream that is alive and well on Rumble. But what I will say today is, for every bloviating right-wing headliner like Stephen Chowderhead Crowder, Speedbag Benny Shapiro, or Melonhead Charlie Kirk, there are literally thousands of D through Z listers on Rumble parroting the same bullshit, and it's nothing but a long, terrible road of hatred, bigotry, anti-Semitism, racial slurs, and absolutely moronic conspiracy theories, and it's raking in ridiculous amounts of money. My experience as a faux right-wing shithead led me to the Stu Peters Network, and in upcoming episodes we'll be exploring what it's like to be in the belly of that beast. Spoiler alert, it's not pleasant, and to remain in good standing on respectable platforms, this podcast needs to censor about 90% of anything coming out of Stu Peters' mouth.
Yeah, Stu Peters, he is absolutely one of the reasons why I'm here, because of the avalanche of shit that comes out of him, health misinformation, COVID misinformation. I'm here for the nerd shit, and there's so much of that type of misinformation on Rumble that tackling all of it is literally impossible, but I'm going to try anyway.
Yeah, and if you look at like the timing of it, with Stu Peters rising to prominence on Rumble, that was right around 2020. So he saw his opportunity and took it and just started spreading anti-vax bullshit. and it paid off handsomely for him. And now he has a very large audience and an entire network of people. He's basically the Dark Mirror universe version of Jon Stewart. Like, he promotes and is kind of a kingmaker amongst right-wing circle, YouTubers and Rumble folks that now, have their own giant echo chamber that is pulling in, all of these incels that we keep hearing about that is leading to, the male loneliness epidemic. Well, they're all listening to Stu fucking Peters.
Yeah. Stu Peters is the guy you've seen on those videos where he goes around and harasses people for wearing masks in public and that sort of thing. It's gross. It's terrible. He's an awful, awful person, and he absolutely belongs on Rumble. And again, we will get to him in future episodes and spend a lot of time talking about him and his positions, who listens to him. It's a mess, folks. It's a real mess.
I did want to ask you, because I hadn't heard about this before. So you mentioned that Sean Hannity is an MMA fetishist. What is that?
He trains with and has been trained by UFC fighters. There's videos of him going through MMA training, and he performs about as well as you would expect a doughy, out-of-shape man in his mid to late 50s would.
Okay, I saw a clip. I didn't know that was the whole thing. I thought that was like a daily exercise for his show. Like, I'm going to step into the ring and see what I do. But he actually does that like as a hobby.
As a hobby, yes. As far as I'm aware, he hasn't competed. But like Mark Zuckerberg, he desperately wishes he could. There's a great video, just a short clip of Mark Zuckerberg walking out with one of the UFC fighters, standing there like a dick at an orgy that can't get it up, as all the stuff happens around him and he can't join in.
The clip I saw of Sean Hannity reminded me of that old show Bully Beatdown, where they find bullies and force them to fight actual MMA fighters, and they're these doughy, out of shape, middle aged guys who just get their asses kicked.
Yeah, look, I don't want to be beating my own drum too much, but
But you actually, do practice martial arts.
Yeah, the punchy, kicky arts have been a hobby of mine for a while, and I've taught people, I've trained people. Everybody starts out super awkward, and it's one of the great things about teaching and training is that it reminds you that you were super awkward to start with.
Right.
Sean Hannity never lost the awkwardness. He fights like a baby deer that's about an hour and a half old. He throws...
Windmill! Use the windmill!
Yeah. He throws the punches with all the strength and confidence of a foal taking its first steps. And apparently he's been doing this for a while because he makes a big thing of it. He posts to social media the videos of him training, and it's quite funny.
Wow. That's just self-reflection right out the window when it comes to the right wing, because I'd be embarrassed to post shit like that.
Oh, that's one of the themes. I mean, part of the purpose of this project, this podcast, is to identify the commonalities and point out the through lines and create essentially a digital yarn and pushpins board. And lack of self-reflection is definitely an overriding theme of virtually everybody who finds a home on Rumble.
Yeah, check your shame at the door. Welcome to the right wing.
Yeah, pretty much. Rumble has also become home to the very, very worst in Christian nationalism.
Oh, yes.
We mentioned Charlie Kirk earlier, and again, add him to the list of names that we will absolutely be covering in more depth in the future. Both Korak and I are atheists, secular humanists, and Rumble absolutely has had a role, whether people appreciate it or not. Rumble absolutely has had a role in spreading the creeping onset of theocratic fascism that is infiltrating all levels of government in America at the moment.
Yeah.
Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk's organization, this is a big, really, really well-funded group. They have their conferences. They invite extremely well-connected and very powerful politicians. It's an organization that has far more influence than I think a lot of people realize.
Yeah.
And people like Charlie Kirk are out there driving the policy and driving the message of organizations like Turning Point USA. So to hear them say their Christian messaging is one thing, but to understand that that same messaging is being delivered directly into the ears of policymakers and lawmakers is something else. And so that's absolutely a subject we're going to dive into much, much deeper in future episodes.
Right. As well as the fact that the bar for entry is incredibly low. Like, you could literally waltz in and just say, I hate the Jews, and you're a member, and you're off and running, and you've got an audience. And it's very easy to get established with this because they promote nothing but hatred. So whether or not you believe what you're saying, if you promote hateful things, you're a member. So
yeah. So, Quark, how much have you heard about Pat Robertson since he died?
Actually, I haven't heard anything since he died. In fact, when right-wingers die, they just seem to kind of fade into the ether. And the only reason I remember Rush Limbaugh is because there's a Twitter profile dedicated to declaring that he's dead every day.
Glorious. Why do you think that is? What's your theory on why you don't hear anything about dead right-wingers? Because I have a theory, but I want to know your thoughts first.
Okay. I think it's because they contribute absolutely nothing to society. And once they're gone, there's really nothing to remember them by other than the vitriol that they were spewing. And there's nothing but a bunch of other Johnny-come-latelys trying to fill that role and do what he did to, make some quick cash.
Right. And see, that's interesting because that's very much along the lines of what I've been thinking too. Hate is the same. It doesn't matter where the hate comes from, it's always the same.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if it's a Pat Robertson with a Christian flavor, or if it's a Rush Limbaugh with a stale cigar and whiskey flavor, or Alex fucking Jones with an aneurysm about to burst flavor. It doesn't matter. Like, none of these people have original thoughts.
Right.
None of these people have original contributions. They're all the same.
And who is that fat, pasty, doughy white guy who said that...
Gonna have to narrow it down.
I know, I'm trying here to give you more information. He was really hateful, he was bigoted, and he said that lesbians were responsible for 9/11. We should blow terrorists away in the name of the Lord. He's got that university. Not Bob Jones, but the other fat, white, doughy guy.
Prager. Dennis Prager.
No, he's still alive. This one died.
Nope. Yeah. You're not talking about Pat Robertson, are you?
No, the other one. Falwell. Fucking Jerry Falwell.
Oh, fucking Falwell, yeah.
Yet another one lost to history because he was nothing but a hateful monster, and that was his contribution to the world.
Right, and this is just sort of further evidence, or at least a further example of what my theory, capital T theory, on these people is. They're all so interchangeable.
Right.
It doesn't matter if Pat Robertson dies, someone else will step in his place. It doesn't matter if Rush Limbaugh dies, someone else will step into his place. It doesn't matter if Jerry Falwell or any one of these fuckers dies. Their hate does not change. Right? Because I think about,
right,
the way you miss a loved one. A friend or a family member dies, you remember them for what they brought to the world, for what was unique about them in your world. Their place in your heart is defined by their unique qualities, the fact that they were special. There's nothing special about Pat Robertson. There's nothing special about what Rush Limbaugh brought into the world. And that's why we don't hear anything about them.
Right.
People constantly talk about, the MLKs and Jimmy Carter, now that he's gone, just to take a recent example, right?
Right.
But who the hell talks about...
Yeah, I'm waiting to hear about the opening of the Rush Limbaugh Memorial Dog Park or the Jerry Falwell Library, something. Are they contributing anything to society?
They're not even worth naming a dog park after, right? And I think this is if we sort of take a broader look, particularly in the context of the project that we're undertaking here, there's just so much of it out there, and it's all the goddamn same.
Right.
There are so many people out there who are willing to spout just the same stuff so that they might get a little bag of pennies or a tiny slice of the pie. Now it's a very fucking big pie, so a tiny slice is still a fair chunk of change.
Sure. But on any given day, we could be reporting that, Steven Crowder said something stupid, and, just next door, some other person is going to be reporting about, Alex Jones saying the exact same stupid shit. Like, there needs to be more eyes on this, because they're just broadcasting into their echo chamber to tell their followers what they want to hear, and it's all the same hateful bullshit.
Yeah, and I think that's a big problem with the way that media approaches stories. That the weight of the story is determined by the number of people talking about it.
Right.
So when you have something like a Rumble that has God knows how many thousands of good little munchkins all willing to repeat each other, a nothing story becomes enormous just by dint of the number of people who are willing to repeat it.
Right.
There's still nothing behind it. It's still a pointless story. It's still based on nothing. It's still based on lies. But none of that matters. What matters is that there are so many people who are willing to repeat it.
Right.
And that's how this shit bleeds over into the mainstream, what they love to call the legacy media.
It's just continuing the fine tradition of, like, the Drudge Report. They would report stupid bullshit. It got repeated on Fox, and then it got leaked into the mainstream media. Now we all have to talk about it. And in their world, everything's fucking upside down. They're talking as we speak right now about the DC flight that crashed because of DEI. And that is leaking into the mainstream media, and they're not reporting on the fact that Donald Trump fired FCC regulators, Elon Musk went after those same people. There's not necessarily a correlation causation there, but there's enough facts that maybe the media would pick up on it. But instead, we're talking about fucking DEI when there were no people of color involved or minorities. These were white pilots with a white control flight tower and limited resources because of Donald Trump's decrees.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, as a good scientist, I have to say that you're correct. Correlation does not equal causation, but it's a good place to start looking.
Yeah, and if you see a correlation as brazen as this, you follow the evidence that it has.
Yeah, you raise a good point too about the Fox News of it all. There used to be a very clear line between Alex Jones and Fox News that got filtered through Tucker Carlson.
Right.
Tucker and Alex are, of course, best buddies. And the wackiest of Alex Jones's shit would get filtered out by Tucker Carlson, and then the wackiest of Tucker Carlson's shit would get filtered out by Fox News.
Yeah.
And so what ended up being on Fox News was this sort of double charcoal filter of the cheap vodka that was Alex Jones into the cheap vodka, but it's been through two charcoal filters of Fox News.
It's like Scottish vodka. Oh, we ran the potato through the sock a second time.
Yeah. I mean, stick to running that shit through peat moss. At least that way it has flavor.
But yeah, they had a filtration system, but then OAN and all that other shit kept coming up, and then that broke the sieve that was, restraining all of this extra shit.
Yeah, and of course the Tucker filter is not there anymore either. He's off on Twitter doing his own thing, like it was a mutual decision that he had to go, and not the direct result of him costing the company nearly $1 billion.
Now, there's an interesting correlation there. They lost $1 billion in court largely because of Tucker, and then he got fired.
I know. It's weird, right?
Strange.
It's just, as we were talking, that was something that I've been thinking about for a while, is, these right-wing guys die, and we hear nothing about them because they are, as individuals, absolutely meaningless.
Yeah, the reason they're in the news is because they say outrageous shit. That's literally it. So when they're not talking bullshit, there's nothing to cover.
Yeah. So, I don't even know how Pat Robertson died. He probably just died from being 1 million years old.
So, I looked it up here. He suffered an embolic stroke. So, God shut his brain off. He didn't answer a particular prayer. I don't know. Something went wrong.
But again, like that that wasn't news, right? It wasn't news how he died, no one cared. It was just, okay, he's gone, right? We don't need to talk about him anymore.
And I remember when Falwell died, they were like, he's dead. Here's some terrible things he said. He was a horrific person, and he made people's lives miserable. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
We're going to get into that into future episodes. Until then, if you'd like to keep in touch with our plucky hosts of Ready to Rumble, you can say hello to the good doctor at Scorpion the Bird on Blue Sky. And as always, you can join your favorite bard at youtube.com/@antitheistsuperstition for religious and political parodies and debates. For exclusive and early access to all of our content, join our inner circle at patreon.com/KorakTheBard. If you have questions, concerns, comments, quips, or quotes you'd like to share with us, shoot us an email at birdandbardproductions@gmail.com. Until next time, best of luck in evading the oncoming wave of fascism. We are your hosts, Korak the Bard.
And Scorpion the Bird.
And this has been Ready to Rumble.
The preceding podcast was a product of Bird and Bard Productions, copyright 2025, all rights reserved. All music was recorded by Bird and Bard and was used with permission.